Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. And today we're going to be talking about why the 2022 midterms are actually a bad sign for Democrats and why it may give them a little bit too much confidence heading into 2024. Make sure to hit the like button to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so we all know what happened in 2022. All the polls said, oh, there's going to be this huge Republican sweep in some of those swing states or some states that were initially not competitive, like the Michigan governor's race, were going to be these tight elections. Tim Michels was supposed to win Wisconsin. Ron Johnson was going to win Wisconsin Senate seat by 6. Oz was going to win Pennsylvania. Herschel Walker was going to win Georgia. Adam Laxalt was going to kill Cortez Masto in Nevada, and Masters was going to eke out a win in Arizona. We all know what happened. We all know, Laura Kelly's going to go down in Kansas. Kari Lake's going to win by 10 points in Arizona. And in Pennsylvania, Mastriano's going to be within 5. We heard about it. Zeldin's going to win New York, which she almost did, and we'll kind of get to that. But the whole point about this is, obviously, that was wrong, right? That was incorrect. That was not the correct statement of the election. Democrats ended up outperforming, and this is why the new Virginia early vote numbers are bad for Democrats. And it may not make sense, and this is something I didn't understand 2 years ago because that was my first full-blown experienced election where I was looking into the numbers. In 2020, I was just kind of paying attention to Ready Go Politics and Lex Talk Elections and others when LTE used to not be so biased and was kind of just accidentally wrong. Now he's being wrong on purpose. But either way, now we're looking at this and it's showing that this is a bad sign. And you may be kind of confused, but the problem is Democrats are now the high propensity voter, meaning that Republicans in presidential years are more likely to turn out because they are now part of the working class vote. The same people that were underestimated in the polling for Obama against Mitt Romney, the same people that came out for Obama that was not found in the polling data, those same people are the people that broke for Trump and weren't found in the polling data. It's the same group of people. And there's a lot of Obama-Trump voters, a bunch of them. There has to have been going from 332 Obama to Trump 306 in 2016. There must have been a lot of them. And there is reportedly a lot of Obama to Trump voters. And a lot of those are independent voters. Some of them were former Democrats, and some are still registered Democrat, but they don't vote Democrat anymore at the presidential level, but they may vote Democrat on the Senate level or the governor level or other races. And that's why you saw Fetterman win Pennsylvania by 5, but Biden eke out a win in Pennsylvania. This is also a sign that Biden and Harris may not do well because it clearly shows that Democrats outperform quite a bit. And Wisconsin, again, guys, this is a bad sign. I'm telling you, this is a bad sign for Democrats. The fact that they overperformed and couldn't win Wisconsin is a bad sign. And the reason why they overperformed was because college-educated voters, the same group in the midterms that used to break Republican and used to create these massive GOP landslides with very low turnout, the same low turnout that we got now, Republicans were crushed with those same voters because they are now Democrats. So the realignment that had been occurring from 2016 to 2020 finally showed itself in full force in 2022. They should have done even better than this when you really look at it. And what's interesting is, yes, there were more college-educated voters than non-college to an extent compared to the presidential year. There was lower turnout. And so a lot of those voters were concentrated in the swing states. That's where you tended to find a lot of them. Also, Democrat candidates outspent Republicans 20-1, and despite the fact that they were outspent 30-1 or 20-1, they were still within 5 in all the swing state races. So the fact that even happened is also pretty impressive as well. But looking at this, guys, I'm telling you, this is a bad sign for Democrats because they basically had a perfect electorate to do a landslide, and they couldn't even do it. And to prove my point, I literally adjusted for the exact demographic margins with non-college, college-educated blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and matched it to the 2022 crosstabs. And when you apply it to the new swingometer, Donald Trump wins with 317 electoral college votes nationwide. He does. He literally wins with the same amount. It's literally the same thing. When you basically put the voter percentages at the same amount, you put the vote shares at the same amount as the 2022 midterms, this is what you get in the electoral college. Donald Trump wins with 317 electoral votes. Not only does he win Wisconsin by 6, he wins Pennsylvania by 5, Michigan by 3.5, North Carolina by 6, Georgia by 4, Arizona by almost 5, Nevada by 3, but you also have New Hampshire by 1. So with the same exact demographics from that cycle, Donald Trump is completely killing Kamala Harris. So that's not a great sign either. And even looking at, for example, let's go ahead and look at this, Arizona's race for the Senate, comparing it to the presidential election. The main problem that you had was Maricopa. That was the main problem. Blake Masters actually held up somewhat respectable in some of these rural areas. Like, he did okay. Like, he did alright. Did not as good as Trump, but he did okay. He didn't crater there. The problem was Maricopa, and there are a lot of Hispanics. And the thing is that Trump has way more of an appeal with Hispanics nationwide. Also, you cannot translate midterm elections with presidential elections simply because of the fact that not only on the House level, yes, the entire state ballot, the entire country is on the ballot, but certain states get more attention because you have a Senate race or you have a governorship race. That's just the truth. Some races get more attention, so the disproportionality in some states is a little bit higher, and you can't really equate trends in midterms to presidential elections because of that, because there's too many control variables in presidential elections, like maintaining the exact same amount of states that are up for grabs. Those kind of things change in midterms all the time, and also every single midterm there's a different issue at hand. Healthcare was the most important issue in 2018. 2022 abortion was the most important issue, pretty much, besides the economy. But the problem is Republicans in these states weren't able to target that message. They were like, oh, but the groceries. No, that's not what it was about. Trade jobs were also a huge problem being shipped overseas. The Keystone Pipeline, that was not being talked enough about by these Senate candidates, and that's why a lot of them got crushed. Funny enough, the most MAGA of them all actually ended up winning, by the way. Just to let you guys know, the most MAGA Republicans won. J.D. Vance actually won. And funny enough, he actually did better in the suburbs than Donald Trump did. He did slightly worse in some rural areas because it was a midterm year and it's lower turnout. But J.D. Vance actually did better amongst suburban voters than Donald Trump did in the crosstabs. In Wisconsin, literally, Ron Johnson's basically entire career has been about going after the Hunter Biden laptop, and he's been somewhat right-leaning, and he's done very well for himself in a lot of the WOW counties for the most part. But if you look, his driftless performance is not there. And when you don't have Donald Trump on the ballot, you see, this is the thing. Everybody's like, oh, the reverse coattails are going to hurt Mark Robinson and Trump in North Carolina. No, funny enough, Donald Trump actually pushed a lot of people over the top in 2016 and in 2020. In 2016, he pushed Ron Johnson to that, single-digit victory because Ron Johnson was not only boosted by his own base, but he also had Trump's coalition in the driftless area. Same thing for Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania. You'd think, oh, well, he actually outperformed Trump, so without Trump, he would have done even better. No, that's not true, because without Trump, he would have not had that rural white working class that he would have gotten besides that. And so when you look at this, Ted Budd is one of the most MAGA Republicans on this list, and he ended up crushing it. And though they are the most MAGA candidates and they won, Oz was not really super conservative. He was not even from the state of Pennsylvania. He was from New Jersey. So that kind of hurt him a bit. And Fetterman was from Pennsylvania, and he kind of had some of a sympathy vote, and also his parents are Trump voters. So it's kind of interesting, and he kind of has that ability to appeal to people in some of these states. And so that's why John Fetterman was able to win in the state of Pennsylvania, because he was able to kind of run it up with white working class. Also, Doug Mastriano at the top of the ticket ended up performing so badly that he kind of also hurt Oz as well. There were a lot of Oz Shapiro voters. That was a big thing in Pennsylvania back in the 2022 midterms. And looking at New Hampshire, again, you had, Maggie Hassan do pretty well with those college-educated voters, and there was way less non-college Trump voters in the midterm than there would be in a presidential year. And so the fact that despite there being way less, they still underperformed in the crosstabs with college-educateds from last time isn't a good sign going into 2024 for them. I mean, even looking at the governorship race, comparing it to the presidential race, there are some places on the governorship map for Kari Lake where she actually outperforms Trump with non-college, by the way. Kari Lake actually does better with some non-college, but Trump did better with college-educated voters in Arizona compared to Kari Lake. So when Donald Trump comes in and he's able to kind of beat, Harris with those college-educated voters in Arizona, coupled with Kari Lake's non-college appeal, she's probably going to be able to cross the finish line, unlike what most people will tell you. Now, if the polling gets bad there, if certain fundamentals in my model get bad enough, then maybe she does narrowly lose. But she's not losing that Senate seat by 6 to 8 points. It's not going to happen. She's not losing that seat by 6 to 8 points. Now, looking at, again, it's just, look, this same exact electorate for 2022 applied onto a presidential map gets you a very modest Trump electoral college victory. And that's with the non-college graduate and white college graduates shifting to the right. The problem is there was way more college-educated voters this cycle than what there were before. And so it was kind of able to offset that. And independents really broke for Democrats compared to most people's expectations. Even if you look at age, right, guys? Like, let's look at the age demographic and kind of see how we can play around with this. Because this is interesting, because we all know that Democrats were able to break pretty heavily with those type of young voters. Democrats actually did better with young voters in the crosstabs this cycle in the midterms. They were actually able to do better, and they were about 12% of the electorate, give or take. And if you look at 30 to 44 years old, they broke by a 4-point margin, so Republicans sort of improved with them quite a bit, but they're about 21% of the electorate, give or take. You kind of had them be about 1%. And you're going to see something interesting, because the map for the House of Representatives was actually a 297 to 241 map. That's what, if you were to add up all the House votes, you basically get that, except for Alaska, where Mary Patola won that seat. But basically, Alaska's not going red. So assuming Alaska would have gone red regardless, the rest of the map would have been about a likely, a 279 to 241 victory in the Electoral College if you would have put all the 22 votes for Republicans on an Electoral College map. Excuse me, guys, for the cough. But looking at this, right, even like 45 to 64, you saw Republicans really outperform with that group. But the problem is, if you look at that group, right, so let's say, they basically win with that group pretty easily, and you were to kind of go over here, roughly they're about 39% of the electorate, give or take, and then you saw 65 and older do pretty good for Republicans overall. They were a pretty decent performance for some of these, but again, you did see sort of a 28% of the electorate there. So even if you were to apply, look at that, if you were to apply the age demographics, you also get a pretty modest Trump victory in the Electoral College as well. It's just that obviously certain votes were disproportionately allocated in certain states. But again, yeah, if you were to basically look at the age demographics and apply them properly, from 2022, you get a Trump Electoral College win. People just kind of assume that, the 2022 midterms is the recipe to success, and you had a lot of people mad about abortion. I mean, the Roe v. Wade thing basically killed Republicans that year. If it wasn't for that, they probably would have done a lot better in statewide races. That definitely would have translated. But again, education was the main problem, and since more of those educated voters were Democrats, the electorates in certain states were closer than 2020. The problem is a lot of Democrats are still in the same mindset as 2022, thinking they can coast on abortion and college-educated whites, but that's not going to be their path to success come the election. It's just not going to be that way. Even if you looked at the 2020 crosstabs, let's try to look for suburb, right? So if we were to look for let's see, region or area type, right? So we look at area type, they'll tell you, oh yeah, Trump killed it, or Biden killed it with suburban voters. But Biden actually only won them by 2 points, and Trump actually won them in 2016. And so the fact that he is only up 2 points with them isn't really a good sign. And when you look at area type here in the midterms, you actually saw Republicans won the suburbs. You saw them win the suburbs, however, and they technically did better in the rural areas. Like, they improved with everywhere, but the problem is the urban and suburban electorate was higher. That's the issue that Republicans had. If they would have had this in a 2020 electorate here with these percentages, they would have won that race. They would have done way better. At least Mehmet Oz probably would have made it over. Herschel Walker probably could have made it. Arizona would have been a little bit more questionable, but Nevada for sure would have went red too. And so that was the problem. Urban and suburban voters were higher in the electorate than rural voters were. And so that really killed Republicans in the midterms. But now you're probably going to have an electorate that's sort of similar to this. You may have something fairly similar. And you may even possibly have a higher urban electorate in 2024, which may actually benefit Trump because he gained in urban areas from 2016 to 2020. And those are little signs of what could potentially happen now with Kamala Harris. And also too, like, suburban voters have a lot of union voters, and you saw that Teamsters poll that had Trump killing it with them. And so if that's really the case, how is it so certain that Harris is just going to magically improve with suburban voters? It just doesn't make any sense. Right now my election model has Trump with about an 85% chance to win because he's winning in a lot of the swing states with pretty big ease. Actually, he's winning Wisconsin by around 5.8%, Michigan by around 2.5%, Wisconsin almost a 6-point win, North Carolina is an 8-point win, Georgia is kind of closing in on an 8-point victory, Arizona like about a 6.5-point win, Nevada is around a 4.5-point victory, Nebraska's 2nd district is a little bit of a toss-up, Maine at large is like a 2-point something win, Virginia is only like a 1.5, by the way, guys. New Hampshire is coming in as like a 1.5 as well, basically the same thing as New Hampshire, and Minnesota coming in as a slightly lean state, and New Mexico kind of being in that lean column as well. A lot of the blue states are a lot closer this time around, and New York, give or take, is around a little bit less than a 10-point win for Harris, given what's going on in the state with a lot of demographics moving to the right in New York City. You're going to see these big shifts with certain groups. Illinois, exactly a 10-point win. Colorado, a little bit under an 8-point win. So you're seeing a big shift with the electorate. And this is fueled by Trump's support with non-college educated voters and him still improving with all college educated voters, by the way. And so if you guys did enjoy this analysis, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.